Hey guys! In this video I'll show you how to draw a wafer cone with cookies and flowers in it, step by step. I'll be using a few brushes from the new Botanics set and also brushes that I made especially for this tutorial. You can support me and access Patreon exclusive tutorials and brush sets on my Patreon page. You can check it out via the link below in the description. Now, let's begin drawing! Today I will be drawing on a vertical canvas with the dimensions of 2000 by 2500 pixels. Let's go ahead and change the background color into this one from top of the fourth column. After that I'll go to the color palette and pick light blue from here. Now I'm going to my botanical set to grab grass blade gouache. The size is at max and opacity around 66%. Let's start making these diagonal strokes at some distance from the canvas edge, going down. Then I will go up, making strokes crisscross, like this. Now let's go to the right and continue filling the canvas with this color, keeping gaps around the edges. If you already watched my forest painting tutorial, you must be familiar with this brush and know how it works. Let's paint this area inside and at the bottom. I think it's an easy way to make a textured background. Alright, we did it. And we can proceed to drawing a wafer cone. For that I'm creating a new layer and picking this color on top. But it can actually be any color, because it will be covered with a gradient later. I'll be using monoline brush from calligraphy. The size is at 5%. So we divide our cone into 3 parts, 2 sides and back. I'll start drawing from the right side, first making an oblique line. It doesn't have to be perfect, but also not too wavy. And then I will draw the opposite side of this part of the cone, consisting of these tiny curves on top. And then I will just connect it with this point. Let's drag the color inside this shape. After that I will change the color, let's say into this one, and create a layer above. We will draw the second part of the cone on the left. I'll start a bit lower than this edge. Draw an oblique line the following way. I'll make it rounded at the bottom. And on the right side, I will also make these curves. Widening the shape while going down. In the end, it'll go this way. Closing the shape and filling it. To draw the last part of the cone, I'm creating a layer below the previous two and picking this dark brown. I'll just make this curvy line on top. Close the invisible part and fill it. We made the base. And now can do the shading. I'll start from here, create a new layer and turn these two off, so they don't distract me. Let's pick this color in the middle of the first column. I'll click on this S icon Pick rectangle and also color fill. Let's make a rectangle like this, covering our shape. It will be filled. Let's deselect and create a new layer above this one. Clip it. I'll grab this yellow color and draw a vertical line, tapping on the canvas. Then drawing another one at some distance. I'll move it a bit, like this. Then connect these lines on top and at the bottom, and drop the color between them. Let's change the color into this one and draw one more line, also tapping. We need to connect these lines too before filling, because we didn't get the underneath layer selected. After filling, I'll finally grab this color at the bottom. Draw like this and fill this last area. After that, we can merge these two layers. Alpha lock it, go to Adjustments and apply Gaussian blur around 21–22%. We got a cylinder. And now I'll do the following. Lower the layer's opacity so we can see the cone. Go to Transformation and turn our rectangle into equilateral triangle using Distort. After we did that, we can bring opacity back. I'll duplicate this layer and drag one of them on top. Let's clip both layers to their parts accordingly. First this one. This is how it looks. And then another one. We did so because even though we divided the cone into parts, it's still one object, and it has a single shading scheme. If it doesn't match 100%, we can adjust it slightly without ruining the shading. Now time to add wafer texture on each part of the cone. I'm creating a new layer here, picking dark brown, and this brush from the bundle. It is in full size. And I'm painting a square area like this. After that, go into Transformation, first rotating this grid to around 114 degrees. Then switching to Warp to transform it the following way. I'll turn these lines into arcs by dragging the grid down. The sides will go up. We are doing this because it's a cone, not just flat surface. So with the arcs instead of straight lines, we will emphasize the roundness of our shape. Okay, let it be something like this. Now I'll go ahead and clip the layer. Change its blending mode to multiply. Go to Adjustments, select Gaussian blur and apply it slightly, around 2.5%, but you can blur more if you want your texture to be less sharp. After that, I'll duplicate the layer, alpha lock it to change its color into this yellow by means of Fill Layer tool. We also need to change the layers mode to Pin Light. Now let's go to transformation and move this layer to the side, like this, so that inside each yellow cell there is this dark angle. As you might have guessed, we will do the same for the other side. So let's create a new layer, grab this dark color, set it to multiply immediately, and paint a square area same way as we did before. I'll rotate this one clockwise. Then click Warp and also transform this grid, so the lines turn into arcs. Let's pick the area where the cells are a bit smaller. Rotate it a bit more. This is fine. I'm going to clip it, then blur it a little. Let it be 2.6%. Duplicating this layer, locking it to paint into yellow. And if you remember, the blending mode should be changed into Pin Light. Let's displace this one just a tiny bit. After the texture is applied, we can add a more detailed shading. For that, let's merge these layers, create a new one above, clip it, set it to screen, and change the brush into soft brush. With lowered opacity and small brush size, I will highlight this curvy edge. Then merge the layers for the right part. Create a layer above, clip, set to multiply. Grab dark brown, make the size even smaller, and paint a shadow under each curve. If it looks too dark, we can always change the opacity. I'll make it 79%. Let's create another layer here, also clip it, and change the layers mode to Pin Light. I'll use this yellow color to paint a light spot on this part. increasing the brush size prior to painting. Now let's see how they look all together. Well, I think it's yummy. Before drawing other things, I want to do this. Merge these layers. Grab a eraser set to monoline. Okay, it's this one. I'll erase these intersections on the edge. I know it's a small detail, but it will make the wafer cone look more real. Actually, in this illustration I combined a few drawing styles. Like I made this painterly background and then sort of realistic cone. Then we will be using painting brushes again. I just want to share a few techniques in one tutorial, and you can decide which one you like. Okay, this is done. Let's merge these layers too. And quickly erase the edge where it is touched by the line. This way the cone is also getting some volume. For sure there are very many different ways to draw a wafer cone. I'm just showing you the one that I like. But it doesn't mean it's the only possible way, of course not. Every artist has his own approach to drawing different things. Finally, the cone is complete. We will start filling it with different elements. I'm creating a new layer above this one. Picking this pinkish color and monoline brush. Drawing a circle here, approximately of this size. I'll tap to make it perfect. Then fill it with the color. Create a new clipped layer for shading. I'll start with this color that comes next in the palette. Let's go to Botanics brush set and pick Grass Blade Painterly brush. Let's make it full size and try 50% opacity. I'll just paint around the edge like this. It feels very soft and the brush is very sensitive to pressure. Okay, let me go to initial position of the canvas. I will lower the opacity to 27% and paint on the border between two colors to blend them. After that, make it full opacity and smaller size to draw more on the edge. Alright, after that I will lower the opacity back to around 26% and increase the size. Let me adjust the opacity a bit to make it more visible and also make it full size. I'm making these circular strokes in the center. Now let's change the color into purple. I'll make the opacity 44%. Let me try. Well, let's lower it to 32% maybe. It works better now. I will paint on the right side of the circle. This way. Now let's lower the opacity a bit more to blend this color with others. Finally, I'll pick this light pink, make the size 34% and start painting on the edge. We can definitely increase the opacity to 48% and continue moving along the edge. Let's make the size slightly bigger maybe. This brush is very nice to paint with, but you need to find a balance between its size and opacity to get the desired look. If you feel that it's not turning out as you wanted, just tap 2 fingers and try again. Okay, I will increase the opacity and lighten the edge. What I'm trying to do right now is distribute the color evenly around the border of the circle and also make transitions not so sharp. Let me decrease the opacity to 40%, increase the size and make this highlight inside the circle on the left. And also in the middle this way. Let me increase the opacity a bit and lower the size to add a few strokes on the left. I'll paint more here. Make it brighter on the left. Let me try to blend the color using low opacity. Or we can use this color as a mediator. I'll make the size bigger and start drawing on the borders to soften the transitions. Let's lower the opacity even more and blend the colors more. Let me check. I'll paint more in the middle. Okay, let's go to this pink layer and duplicate it. We need to move it a bit to the left, like this. After that, create a new layer above it and clip. I'm picking this dark purple. Opacity 63%, size 50%. Let's draw a shadow here. Then switch to light pink. I will lower the size a bit and increase the opacity. Draw on the outer edge. Once it is done, the layers can be merged. Let's try to put it inside the cone. I'll make it a bit narrower, in freeform, and rotate slightly. Move it deeper into the cone. Please make sure it doesn't go outside the cone shape. Now let's draw neighbors for our lonely cookie. I'm going to create a layer above it. Pick this bright red and monoline brush. I will draw same cookie, but from another point of view. Imagine you are drawing a burger that is empty inside. Something like this. I will fill it. Draw another shape at some distance. And also fill. If you are not satisfied with the shapes, you can adjust them using Liquify or Warp. I think Liquify tool will work better in this case. I will just push the edges outwards. Okay, I like how it looks now. Let's create a layer underneath. Grab this creamy color and paint between these two shapes. Going a little outside. Let's fill the entire gap. And I'll make these tips round. I will use eraser to fix these corners on the red layer. Alright, let's shade it. Starting with this layer. I'm creating a new one above and clipping it. Picking this color and our painterly brush. Opacity is around 70%. And I'm drawing on top of this white area. A couple of strokes at the bottom. Let's merge them and go to the red layer. I'll also create a new layer above it and clip. Switching to the red shade nearby. Let's lower the opacity to 43% and increase the size. I'm painting on top, from left to right. Increasing the opacity slightly and painting more on top. Now I'll paint on top of the lower part. We can adjust size and opacity of the brush to make strokes of different intensity. Here I will paint like this from right to left. Let me add a couple of strokes on the upper part. And after that I'll grab light pink for the highlights. I will try to make opacity 20% and paint on the upper edge. Okay, we can increase it to 40-something% and I'm not pressing on the pencil. Then I'll paint on this edge at the bottom. I'll make a small gap, then continue highlighting. I'm changing brush size and opacity many times here to adjust the brightness of the color and also blend it properly. Let's highlight this upper edge too, here on the right, and at the bottom. I want to add it on the left here. Well, we can pick the darkest red and darken some areas, like here on the left, on the upper part. Make sure there are no sharp borders and the shading looks natural. I'll adjust the highlights quickly. And it can be considered done. Let's merge these two layers. I don't want to make a group to copy. Instead, I will select these two layers for the cookie and just drag and drop them in the canvas. The copy will appear on top. Now these two layers can be merged. And I will place it inside the cone. Let's rotate it. And maybe we can flatten it, using transformation in free form. Now that's better. I'll only change its position in the layers. Now let's go to the top layer. Then hue, saturation, brightness. You can slide to change the hue amount and pick the color you like. I will keep this orange, reducing the brightness slightly. After that, I'll merge these layers too and drag it here between two cookies. Let's go to transformation, rotate it, and place like this. I think I will also flatten it a bit and rotate more. So the main and most difficult part of the drawing is finished. Now you can set your imagination free, have fun and add anything you want. Flowers, leaves, candies, other treats and so on. I will create a new layer here. Pick this bright green and grass blade painterly brush. I'll make it full opacity and draw a leaf on the left. Paint inside it, making strokes up and down. If it goes outside the cone on the side, you can erase it. I think I will move this cookie a bit to the right and paint this gap on the leaf. Then I'll pick next green color and alpha log the layer. I will lower the opacity and paint on the left side of the leaf in a sketchy manner. I'll also paint on the right side, under the cookie. Let me make it even lower to blend the colors. I will go darker. Shade this edge. And also here. I'll make this line even darker. And emphasize the shadow here with a lower opacity. The leaf is done. I will draw another one on the opposite side, on a new layer, starting with this bright color again, making the brush full opacity and drawing a leaf of a different shape. Of course, you can draw it in your own way. Let me paint inside it. I'll switch to another shade of green, lower the opacity, increase the size a bit, and alpha log the layer so the strokes don't go outside the shape. I'll lower the opacity even more, for better blending, and shade this part of the leaf. Then grab a darker green, make both sides and opacity low, and paint this line in the middle. I'll add these subtle lines on the side. Then this shadow. And I will actually paint this side until here. And I'll fix this line. Well, let me drag this cookie a bit down, like this. You can always rearrange the objects and see what works best during the process. I just don't want this back side of the cone to be seen. Alright, I'll now create a new layer here and draw a couple of grass blades. Like this. Let's create a layer right above the back side of the cone. I'll pick this dark pink and foliage textured brush. Drawing like this, making strokes to get color variations. And I'll erase this leaf on the side and this one. I want to add a shadow to this foliage. We'll be doing it on a new layer that I will clip. Change the color into dark purple and brush to soft brush. I'll paint here at the bottom. And we better set it to multiply. Alright, let me darken it a bit more. Let's merge the layers and create a layer on top here. I'm changing the color into dark pink and picking the previous foliage brush. Making a few strokes here until it gets opaque. Maybe tap here too. And we can shade this foliage. On a new clipped layer, set to multiply, using dark purple color and soft brush. I will darken some areas. Let me see what else I can add. Well, it can be same foliage above this leaf. I'll pick this brush and draw like this. Make the size smaller and make one more stroke. Now I'm creating a layer above this biggest foliage, picking this bright green and foreground grass. I'll make the size 100% and just tap, and I'll move it up a bit. We can leave it without shading, it looks fine. Instead, I'll pick this red in the middle. Grass painterly brush and create a new layer above all layers. Let's draw a ribbon around the cone. The brush size is 25%. I'll just draw a random curve, like this. After that, grab eraser and erase this part of the ribbon in front of the cone. I'll first erase the edges carefully, then increase the brush size and erase the rest. Let's also get rid of this part at the bottom. Alright, now let's shade it. I'll first pick a darker red, create a new layer and set it to multiply. Grab soft brush and clip the layer. I'll shade this area close to the cone. Also here. Then pick this light shade of red. Create a new layer and set this one to screen. Let's highlight this tip, this part, here, and here. Alright, I'll merge them. Also these two. And these parts of the cone. After that, create a new layer and clip. we need to add a cast shadow on the cone with this dark brown. Set it to multiply. I'll lower the brush size and draw under the ribbon. Let's also add a shadow on the purple cookie. I'm changing the color into this dark one, creating a new layer above it, and changing its mode to multiply. Let's not forget to clip it. I'll paint here on this side, and here under the wafer slightly. This looks pretty good. What we have left is add a paper overlay. For that I'll create a layer above all layers. Pick pure white from the disk. And paper texture brush from the bundle. I'll paint all over the canvas. And set this layer to subtract. The canvas got darker. I'll duplicate it and set this one to add. Looks like almost no texture now. But when we go to transformation and tap at least once on the side, the texture will pop up. If you want it to pop up even more, you can tap one more time to move it in the same direction. Now it looks like it was painted on the wall or some other grainy surface. And our wafer cone illustration is complete. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. You can also support me and unlock more art tutorials and brush sets on my Patreon page. You can find a link to my Patreon and other accounts under the video. Thank you for watching and see you soon.